as per my process. I was able to, before this was all happening, I was able to sit down for 5 hours and just write. There were a lot of things to say, and I will try to keep it as brief as I can. When we're talking about Leann, she was a very special person. I can't remember the exact dates regarding her early career milestones, but there are other people here that have worked that know them far better than I do. I thought she graduated Syracuse Law in '79 and passed the PA bar in 1980. During the early part of her law career, she supplemented her career by side jobs to further her practice along. She was establishing a self-reliant, sole proprietorship practice. And in those days and that time, that was a bit harder than people realized, and it was a bit leaner for some of the lawyers who were doing that. At this particular time, the fortuitous breaks and good opportunities weren't there, and the associateships and the partnerships weren't being offered. She was able to share a desk or rent an office space in another law office to build momentum for her own practice. She practiced general law for a few years before she got into product liability, personal injury, family law, and divorce. Eventually, she got into the public defender's office in the fall of 2002. She accepted the job because it was a steady job, work was consistent, the health plan was good, and the need for income to support Matt, who was 11 then. Matt was born in 1990 in September, and he was also I was also his godfather. My last name is Soul, so I guess that makes me the godfather who is named Soul. But anyway, let's see. Excuse me. Her career at the PD office covered juvenile law, onto parole violation, pretrial mental competency, pretrial pleading, and jailhouse hearings, and finally extradition hearings, which she became an expert. They would try to get all the cases about that directly to her. And some of the law briefs she wrote for that and such were quite reliable, even if somebody had to take over for her. She was that good at research and interviewing people. Let's see. Sorry. She hated rush to judgment, thinly researched cookie-cutter law. She hated piled-on charges used to force government plea bargains. She hated the wink and nod process where people were railroaded to different government-sponsored rehab programs before her client's guilt was established and convictions were official. This happened more often in the juvenile area. As only time permitted, she could discern more pertinent legal information from a 10-minute interview with a client for research than other lawyers could do in 1 or 2 hours. She was that smart. Even some of the judges she had disagreements with wanted her back in their court because she was always well prepared, understood the nuances of the law, and she knew how to effectively negotiate plea bargaining while in court. She was relentless, audacious, determined, and clever. She had judges on their toes, prosecutors and government witnesses, parole officers and ill-prepared officers who had made serious mistakes in the arrest. She had them sweating when she came into court. Despite these facts, she was respected by the police, well-liked by the prison guards. As a matter of fact, they made an effort to give her timely access for prison interviews. Private paid attorneys coveted her files, interviews, and legal research. Prisoners respected her because she was in their corner and she was extremely effective. There were a few younger, while she was situated in the jail, there were a few younger prisoners over a period of a couple of years who were scared, angry, and felt abandoned. They felt separated and feeling separated, they were disrespectful and made vague threats to her. The older prisoners in the pod got a hold of them and stepped in and told them, "You better settle down. You do not mess with Miss Leann." Now, that type of reference is a sort of a Southern reference to where you use the woman's first name and the title of Miss because it's a sign of respect. I mean, you've heard of Miss Lillian, well, that was Jimmy Carter's mother. But anyway, they said she was here to help us all. She had a small office in the jail. She was one of the few female PDs who handled the jail duty consistently. For that, she deserves a lot of respect from us. At least maybe 2 times a month, she would be recognized on the street by family members of prisoners and prisoners who were released while waiting for a bus. And they just gushed over her and thanked her in public. Leann and I had nicknames for each other. Hers was Blonde Kryptonite. Because of her zeal, her relentlessness, and her overpowering ability to argue. It might seem to compare something to Billy Graham, but I will try to make it clear. When Billy Graham was asked the question, what would he say to God? And when he finally arrived in heaven, Billy Graham said, "Why me?" And immediately I had an epiphany when I heard that, and I said to myself, I know the answer. I mean, that's pretty audacious to put words in God's mouth. The question, why me, was answered with, who else, Billy? Who else but you? In that particular vein, when the question was asked, why was Leann the PD? Because it was her destiny. Who else was better suited for the job? If there was a Hall of Fame for the PD or a Wall of Remembrance, she would deserve it. She cared regardless of the obstacles, and her sacrifice was evident. More of a personal thing. I knew Leann for 42 years. Her priorities were her son, her career, and her pets. She loved her son, and his success was her paramount #1 priority. Her career was her passion. She adored her pets. She helped, they helped recharge her and deal with life. As a matter of fact, there was an interesting story about a wild animal. It was a bird who had set up there had been an empty flower pot with a hanger on it that was hanging onto the covering over her porch. And the birds decided they were going to build a nest in there, and they did. And they deposited eggs in there. And almost every day she would go over there with a big hand mirror and take a look at it, and she would put it on her Facebook page. And when it came time for the birds to hatch, she went out and tried to dig out worms out of the ground. Because she was worried that they wouldn't have enough food. This is how much she loved animals. She tried to fit other things into her life as her schedule and opportunities and finances permitted. We met the fall of '79. We went out off and on for 2.5 years as her schedule permitted. We had met through Pittsburgh Tall Club and shared some of those events together. After a short period of being apart, we had come to the conclusion that we were not a lifelong romantic match. But this is where our friendship started to grow. We were different, but as friends, our differences really worked for us. Over the years, we helped each other with rides, with home projects, with errands, and with moving and pet babysitting care. As the years passed, Matt grew up, we became closer. As the years passed and Matt grew up, we became closer as friends. In the last 10 years, we tried to have a dinner together at least once a month. It would be a time to discuss things in life and share. We were able to enjoy each other's company, and there was times it felt like family.